What is up, my fellow black powder revolver enthusiasts? Today I thought we would talk about Pietta and Uberti, the differences between them, which one you should buy if you're looking to get one, and which one I will never buy in the future going forward. So let's get into it. All right, now I'm what you would consider a novice in this sport. I've got a couple years experience, but I'm still kind of approaching a lot of things from a beginner's view. I feel really confident in a few other angles, but this is just my overall experience, what I've seen. I have a small sample size here. I have two Ubertis. I have an 1851 Navy, 1849 pocket pistol, and I have one Pietta, which is a sheriff's model, 1861 Navy. And let's go over the 7 criteria that I'm going to judge these by and talk about which one you should get and which one, again, that I'll never get going forward. All right, the 7 categories we're going to look at today are the price, the adherence to historical accuracy, the overall shooting experience, the aesthetics and fit and finish, reliability, accuracy, and the worst defects and problems of each of the brands. All right, when it comes to price, Pietta wins hands down. It's not even a contest. Pietta is going to be about 15 to 20% cheaper for the same model firearm that you'd find with Uberti. So the 1851 Colt Navy, that's kind of the most basic model that they sell, which is this one here by Uberti. This is going to be $375, but you could get it for about $315 with Pietta. So just to give you an idea of what you're looking to spend, Pietta's ranges go from $295 up to about $450, depending on which model you get. And Uberti's start at about $375 instead of $295. So $375, and they go up to about $550. It's kind of the same anywhere you look. And just keep in mind with price, since the global situation of 2020 and onward has happened, prices have gone up about 15 to 20% across the board for all of these firearms from both companies. So black powder shooting is no longer the cheapest thing that it used to be. All right, when it comes to adherence to historical accuracy, I'm going to give the winner to Uberti. This is going to be due to a few things. The first thing is going to be the grip. I think with older Piettas, what they would tend to do is they would put this like longer tail here on the grip, and a lot of guys would file that down and fix that. I don't think they still do it. The grips match right up on both of these from Uberti and Pietta, so I don't see a difference, but I think that was a thing in the past. But what Pietta does with that Uberti just doesn't seem to do is, or as much, is Pietta will make up firearms that were never historically accurate whatsoever. So they'll put brass frames on guns that never had a brass frame, or they'll shorten the barrel on guns that never had a shortened barrel, or they will change the caliber altogether. And basically one of the most well-known instances, I'll put an overlay here that you can see, is their 1851 Colt Navy sheriff's model in .44 caliber with a brass frame. And they market this as it was produced in the South because brass was harder to find than steel, and it gave them an affordable option to make firearms. Except that was never made in the South. It was never made with a brass frame. It was never made in .44 caliber, and it was never made with a shortened barrel in the factory. So again, it's just a made-up gun. So there's tons of forums that you can check out online to look at your particular model that you want to check out. I recommend doing that. You can find tons of helpful information, but I think if you're looking to get the most historically accurate, you're going to probably run with Uberti. Now, the overall shooting experience, once again, Uberti is going to win, and I really had to think of why. They both shoot. We'll get into accuracy, but I had never have a problem with accuracy. Reliability is pretty much the same, so why do I like Uberti more? And it comes down to 3 things. The grip, first of all. The grip on Uberti is flush. Everything feels great in the hand. It's leaps and bounds above what a Pietta is. If you've ever held a Heritage Rough Rider 22 pistol, that would be a Pietta, if you know what I'm talking about. And then if you held a single 6, that would be a Uberti. It's just a world of difference. They're both functional. They both work. You can just tell quality with the Uberti is way above where a Pietta is. Now, the second thing is the hammer itself. I don't know how close I can get to the screen without it distorting, but what a Uberti does is they put these deep gouges here in a crisscross pattern, and it grips the skin on your thumb. It gives you a good purchase. There's no mistaking that. You could light a match on that thing. It just feels great. You get a good purchase, everything's good. So I love the hammer on a Uberti, and the same thing with the smaller one. Now a Pietta, they put shallow lateral slits on there, and that barely does anything. If you have wet hands, if it's the summer, I mean, I can just pull my skin right off of that, and I have dry hands right now, but I mean, if I try to do that with I can't pull my skin off of the hammer. It just wants to grip with a Pietta or with a Uberti. So the Uberti is going to win with the hammer. Now the last thing is just the action, the sound of it and the feel of it. I've slicked these up the same exact way by following Duelist 1954, Mike Bellevue's channel. I've slicked them up the same exact way. I've put the same replacement aftermarket parts in them between the Uberti and the Pietta, but the Uberti just has a crisper, cleaner sounding action. So if I were to just imagine what does the Wild West sound like when somebody pulls the hammer back, that's Uberti. And Pietta is more muffled with the sound of the metal. It sounds cheaper and muffled. And Uberti just sounds crisp, clear, and like a higher pitch. And I'll put this up to the microphone to see if you can hear. This is Uberti. Everything's just crisp and clear. Now Pietta. Just a different sound with the metal. It's just a personal thing, and I will have to say that I like shooting the Ubertis better. Now aesthetics and fit and finish. Let's see here. I would say that Uberti easily wins with aesthetics and fit and finish. The grip is great, as you can see. It's got that semi-gloss. There's some character to the wood. It just looks good, and it fits the frame. It doesn't stick out past the strap here. The bluing is just fine, no problem with that. There's also no problem with Piettas. The navel scene etched on there is the same as Pietta. It's the same thing. There's no difference. The color case hardening is a little duller, lacks a little character on the Uberti. I do like it better on the Pietta. Just has a little more flash and flare to it. But overall, I really just like how the Uberti comes together, how all the parts fit. Everything seems to be all right. I will get into the defects that I had and some problems, but overall, I like this. This is a display piece, a conversation starter. This is one that you want to put out for everyone to see and to look at. It's a pretty gun. I really like it. Now Pietta, they dropped the ball on the grip. It's like a satin finish. There's no character to the wood. It doesn't fit the back strap. It doesn't fit the frame. As you can see, you can even see daylight through the grip and the frame itself. The handle it doesn't fit. I don't like it. The bluing's fine. The etching of the navel scene is fine. Everything else kind of came together fine. But I just can't get over that grip. I don't like holding this gun. It's not fun, so therefore it's never gonna be kind of my pride and joy of a black powder revolver. Now let's talk about two major differences with aesthetics and fit and finish. The crown, this is the Pietta here. It is on a 90 degree. There is no crown there. It's not beveled, it's not chamfered on the end, it's just a 90 degree. So if a rock or anything hits that, if you drop that, it will curl that 90 degree edge over and it will affect your accuracy. The Uberti takes the time to put a chamfer there on the end of the muzzle, so it is crowned. It protects the rifling if you happen to drop this or ding it on anything, so that's nice. And the other thing, I don't know how well this will show up on camera, but that horrible writing on the side of the barrel assembly of the Pietta. They like to put made in Italy, black powder only, 36 caliber, Pietta on both sides of the barrel. And Uberti is kind enough to hide their markings between the loading lever and the barrel there, so it's discreet. So this looks like a display piece. This looks like a high-end cap gun from the 80s and early 90s from my childhood. So this will always stay in the safe. It's never going to be anything I want to display, so if that's important to you, go with the Uberti. All right, now accuracy between these two, I have no complaints. I'm not the best shot in the world. I'm not going to claim to be. I hit pretty much what I'm aiming at within reason, and it does the job. I have no problem with either of these up to about 15 to 20 yards. I shoot this a little better at 20 yards, and I think it's just because it has a longer barrel and a longer sight picture, so that's just to be expected. But yeah, no problem with either one of these. If you're looking to hit your target, can't go wrong with either one, so this will be a tie. Now reliability, I was actually going to tie both of these in this category, and during my last trip to the range that changed, and reliability is the winner is going to be a Uberti, hands down, not even contested anymore. Uberti is going to be way more reliable after you fix the problems, which I'll get into in the next section. Once you get the problems fixed that come from the factory, the Uberti is the way to go out of these two brands. Now what happened the last time I was at the range is I was shooting both of them. This one shot no problems, had no issues. And then this one, I wasn't shooting a lot. I just did like 2 cylinders out of each. And the second cylinder, I didn't grease up the end of the cylinder here, which, you know, not a big deal if you're just doing 1 cylinder or whatever. And I had loaded this and walked around for a little bit, and then I went to fire. And I was walking around with this. And when I went to shoot one of my rounds, it was like a muffled, it felt like a flintlock. Everything happened within a second, but it was like, pull the trigger, it hit, made the pop, and then it was like a fraction of a second later, then it fired. And I thought, that's kind of strange, that's never happened. And, you know, but it's black powder, things happen. But what I happened to notice when I was kind of looking is what I'll show you next. Okay, so if you take nothing else from this video, take this one thing that has to do with the reliability between both brands. Now, I have the Pietta cylinder here, and I have a Uberti cylinder here. I have a round ball loaded in each of the chambers. There is no powder behind the round ball. There are no caps on the ends. This is technically an unloaded firearm. It just has a round ball stuffed in there that has no propellant behind it. Now, these are pressed down with the loading lever to the max of where they're supposed to go. Let's see what happens when I do this reliability test. If I take the Pietta now and I give it a light shake, maybe just a little whip, let's take it apart and see. 5 of the 6 round balls are working their way up. 3 of them really aggressively, but the other ones are coming behind it. Now, I have tested this multiple times at home and tried to fix this problem. 5 of the 6 chambers in the cylinder, this will happen. This ball creep or whatever, the round ball will just work its way up through recoil or through just jarring or moving. If you shake it hard once or twice with your hand. I've even got a round ball that's sticking proud now of the face of the cylinder. So you can push that right back in. This will bind up your action if that happens. The cylinder can't turn when the round ball stands proud there. It'll cause hang fires, misfires. It'll make you lose velocity. It'll result in a delayed shot like I explained earlier. Now before you judge me, I did clean out the inside of each of these chambers of the cylinder here with hot soap and water, let it dry. I then used a solvent to remove any grease that I might have missed with the hot soap and water. I even bought this is 36 caliber. I have .380 inch lead round balls, so 380 round balls in here. I cut a ring of lead on all of them. Doesn't help. I even bought a .390 inch lead round ball mold and cast round balls for myself and put those in there. They were a bear to load, but I got them in there. They cut a huge ring of lead, and still I can knock them out just as easily as well. So still 5 of them are affected. 1 is good, 5 are bad. Now this could have happened through like when it was drilling it down, when it was getting milled out. The bit that was going in here to cut these holes, that might have been wobbling, and I got 5 out of 6 that are bad. Or it could have left a bevel right on the inside where it cut, and that bevel is kind of just microscopically overhanging the chamfering there on each of the chambers. And when you cut that ring of lead, it cuts the lead on the bevel. And then once it gets past that bevel, now the ball is actually undersized for the inner diameter of the cylinder wall, and it can slide around and do what it wants, because microscopically it's now a smaller diameter than the walls, the inside walls of each of the chambers. So I've tried to knock that bevel down with a grinding stone. It hasn't helped. And to be honest, I'm not going to pay a professional gunsmith probably what this gun costs to fix that, and it's just not worth it. So for me, you know, this is pretty much going to stay in the safe. It is utterly unreliable in my opinion. Now a Uberti, if I do the same thing, if I load this back up and I shake it, I've even dropped this on the ground. Both of my Ubertis, dropped them about 12 inches off of the ground on a carpeted floor and let them hit barrel first to try to jar the round balls out. It doesn't make a difference. The round balls stay exactly where they should in a Uberti. And just to prove that, and as you can see, all 6 round balls are right where they should be. Not a single one has changed their depth. It's the same size diameter round ball, cut around or a ring of lead, nothing's changed. So when it comes to reliability, hands down, uncontested, Uberti wins this match. Finally, we'll get to the major problems and defects with both of these brands. As we have already talked about with Pietta, the ball creep out of the cylinder is one major defect. Another one that kind of soured my opinion of Pietta right from the beginning. I went out to the mail to pick up my Pietta and brought it in, unboxed it, wiped off the grease that it comes in for storage, and I pulled the hammer back gently about 12 times. And on the 12th time, the gun broke. The interior trigger bolt spring snapped in half. It has two fingers on it. One of the fingers snapped, and the cylinder would just rotate freely. The hammer and trigger wouldn't work. So that soured my opinion. This was right at the beginning of the 2020 global you-know-what, and shipping was getting really slow back then. And this took a while to get. Still got it within a month, but then I had to order another part to replace that spring, and that took another month. So basically 2 months from the time of order until I could take this to the range. So it was an easy fix. It's just, take that spring out, put a new one in, easy peasy, but still cheap parts. And so yeah, if I had to say 3 things that are wrong with Pietta, I would say the grip, the ball creep in the cylinder, and then the cheap internal parts. And what I recommend for both of these, and I did it for all of my makes and models, is I swap out the factory nipples with stainless steel cones or nipples. That makes a world of difference with cap jams and reliability. I also swapped out the trigger bolt spring on both of these, so definitely make sure to do that and slick up your action, as seen in a video from Duelist 1954, which I'm sure you're familiar with, Mike Bellevue. He explains exactly how to slick these up, so make sure to do that. Uberti does not get off the hook without having some major problems. And what I had with the 1851 Navy here is I had a horrible cylinder gap between the cylinder and the forcing cone. And I mean, you could put several pieces of paper in there without even pushing the cylinder back towards the hammer. It's just how it was. And when you have a gap like that, you're gonna have that powder flare coming out. It's gonna put tons of fouling all over your barrel assembly, all over your hands. It's going to increase the risk of a chain fire. You're going to lose velocity. So I had to get that fixed, and I had to spend a day or two researching it. I just make 2 trips to the hardware store. I had to then spend a day getting it fixed. It was just a problem that shouldn't have happened leaving the factory. And it really stems from Uberti not getting the arbor length correct. It doesn't bottom out inside of the barrel assembly, and it causes some binding issues. And then you can change the cylinder gap by how far your pin is inserted in the barrel assembly here. It's just a mess. It shouldn't happen. They should have that arbor length down pat by now. They make enough of these. It should be perfectly bottomed out. They should have one. I don't understand why they don't at this point. They send out a gun that needs so much repair. It's like all of these guns from both brands are kit guns, in my opinion. They come 85% complete. You got to bring them up to the A level. They're at a B level. You got to bring them up to an A level. And you got to do some gunsmithing. So if you're getting into black powder, if this is your first time, just keep in mind, you're going to be doing some gunsmithing, whether you like it or not. And if you get your gun and you say, well, I just got a gem right out of the box, maybe you did. But I'm going to think you probably just don't know what you're looking at and what you're supposed to be looking for problems. And I'm still learning as I go and finding other issues with these guns that I didn't see before. But just know, you're going to have to do some gunsmithing. And when it came to the 1849 pocket pistol from Uberti, this had an over travel issue. And what would happen is, if you pull the hammer back slowly, everything would lock into place just fine. If you pulled the hammer back quickly, it would over travel it would end in this position. So the nipple or cone would not be lined up for the slot for the hammer to fall on. So if you were to pull the trigger on it, nothing would happen. And that, again, for my 1849 pocket pistol, that took a day or two of research. That took taking the gun apart and putting it together probably 25 times. Took hours of tedious taking it apart, filing down one of the fingers on the bolt perfectly, about 5 strokes each time, putting it back in, reassembling the whole thing, testing, noting how close I'm getting that over travel down. And I had to do that for hours. I watched a whole movie. So again, that's something that shouldn't happen with a brand new firearm that coming right off of the factory. That should have been fixed. That should have been caught. It's a shame that they didn't. So functionally, Ubertis are terrible in my opinion. I've had major problems with both of them right off of the factory line. But after some gunsmithing, if you're willing to put in the work, the research, buy some tools, invest in the guns a little bit, you can get your Ubertis back up to looking like a fine piece of art. The Pietta though, when it comes down to if I had to answer which one should you buy, hands down, in my opinion now, after seeing that ball creep in this cylinder here, out of 5 out of the 6 chambers, which tells me they either wobbled their tooling, it's wobbly and it's not reliable, or they just don't chamfer it properly at the end to take away that burr. Either way, that is a huge, huge thing. I can forgive other things that I can fix. This one though, I have a feeling the fix is going to be as much as the gun, and I'm not willing to do that, so this is just going to stay in the safe. It is now my junk gun. I'm not going to take this out anymore. I don't plan on shooting it, and that's a shame. I'm going to try to fix it with a smaller grinding stone. If I do get it to work, I will post an updated video, but this gun I am retiring, and I'm going to stick with Uberti from now on. I think you got to put in a lot of work for them, but once you get them right, a Uberti is the way to go. So I hope this helps, guys. If it did, feel free to put a cap on that like button, and take it easy. Thanks for the view and for the support.